An American Indian ritual to mourn the dead as the families of soldiers killed or injured in Iraq join anti-war protesters.
Creator God, we just thank you for this day. We thank you for all the people that have given their lives for us.
This rally is one of a series of protests marking the anniversary of the start of the war in Iraq. Their march is taking them to Dover Air Force Base in Delaware, where the coffins of US soldiers are brought home, but hidden from view.
And I'm here to honor my son, Kelly Stevens Pruitt. He was 24 when his convoy was attacked. They were ambushed, and he was killed.
My son was killed last month. He was killed on February 3rd, 2004, for a useless, senseless, destructive war.
More than 560 Americans have now died in Iraq.
Edward J. Anguino, 24, U.S. Army.
Now the families of those killed have found their voices and are calling loudly for the troops to come home.
Bush lied, and who died? My son, Jesus Alberto Suárez del Solar Navarro, 20 years old.
But President Bush cannot bring their sons and daughters home. The US has committed itself to a battle it must win. The stakes for this president are too high for any other outcome.
Today, unfortunately, nation building in Iraq is a noble experiment. Whether it works or fails is still at issue.
The US presidential envoy in Iraq, Paul Bremer, has the task of preparing to hand over sovereignty to Iraqis by June 30th.
Well, I think Mr. Bremer wanted to make a much later date. I think the entire American plan in all sections, I mean, if the State Department had had its way and had their blueprint, I think you would have also seen a day for transfer much, much later down the road.
Influential Shiite cleric Grand Ayatollah Ali al-Sistani has led the push to meet the June deadline. But Iraq does not have the government structures in place to cope with assuming responsibility for itself.
Now, are they ready to do that? No, they're not even close to being ready. And in each ministry, different procedures have to be evolved. And each minister so far is doing it differently without having a new government in place.
It's still unclear what role the US will play after June 30th, though the Coalition Provisional Authority, headed by Ambassador Bremer, will no longer exist.
A massive new embassy comes in, thousands of people. Almost all of them will be new people with no practical experience. And to say that we're ready to deal with the Iraqi government is as unrealistic as to say that the Iraqi government's ready to deal with us.
Neither is the role of the US military clear.
They will want us to be there to continue to help them. Now, in the process, as we get towards June and beyond, as much of the security responsibility as we can turn over to the Iraqis, we will do.
They really do want the Iraqis to have more control. They would rather have the Iraqis making all these hard decisions.
But the US will no longer have carte blanche military powers. Its troops will continue patrols and training Iraq's new security forces, and it'll maintain its rapid response units. But the US may have to ask permission from the Iraqi Governing Council to take preemptive strikes against targets in Iraq.
A transfer of sovereignty is a transfer of sovereignty. You've had the US commander in Iraq saying that he believes the Iraqis are going to ask us to stay, that they're going to cooperate with us and they understand what is necessary to do the security job. He's also said that if they ask us to leave, we have no choice.
It's likely Americans will see at least 2 more years of their soldiers heading off to a battleground a long way from home, an issue that's already shaping up as a central platform in the battle on US soil for the American presidency later this year.
we're still bogged down in Iraq. What we have seen is a steady loss of lives and mounting cost in dollars to the American taxpayer with no end in sight.
And you are using our wounded and killed soldiers for your leftist political purposes.
In Washington, anger at the anti-war protests bubbled over at a rally outside a military hospital where wounded soldiers are convalescing.
You say someone else should be ashamed?
I have families who have been in the military.
A cemetery
Shame on you. Yes, because people have been killed for what?
Many Americans are deeply uncomfortable with public demonstrations against the war, viewing them as unpatriotic, an insult to the troops still serving. But one protester who says he's a former Marine who served in Iraq last year claims many soldiers simply want to come home.
They fought for something that they didn't believe in. You say you know the troops. I was there. I talked to the troops. These are my friends and people who fought next to me that are in there right now. And now they're sitting there convalescing in that hospital. Some of them are missing limbs for a war they didn't support and believe in.
The Bush administration will walk a difficult path on its retreat from Iraq. It will begin that process on June 30th, but it will be forced to placate public opinion at home while ensuring it leaves Iraq capable of sustaining the democracy promised by the US. And many Americans are deeply uncomfortable with public demonstrating against the war, viewing it as unpatriotic, so assault to the troops